All right, hello again, everybody. Welcome to our next lesson here. This is A Rebirth of Reform. This is for the unit Urban America. Objectives and standards. You will be able to identify how people began to address the issues of society in the late 1800s in the United States, and you will be able to understand how organizations formed to support different members of society, and take a moment there to look over the standards again as usual. And desired result. How did reformers start to help people during the late 1800s in the United States? Okay, again, how did reformers start to help people, excuse me, during the late 1800s in the United States? The problem with society. While many Americans approved of individualism and other views of the Gilded Age, others did not. So remember to our previous lesson where you talked about or learned about individualism, social Darwinism, picking yourself up by your bootstraps kind of, so to speak, and, working hard, and that'll make you rich and wealthy and things like that, and the government shouldn't help people. Some people don't agree with that view, okay? They believe that the problems of society must be fixed by Americans and their government, okay? So because of this, some began taking a more active role to improve society and help those in need, okay? Literature calls for reform, okay? Some authors and writers began calling for changes in economics to help support those in need. They believed there was a huge gap or a huge difference between rich and poor. Okay, they believed that laissez-faire economics, again, kind of like the government staying out of things, was making things worse, not better. They recommended that government regulate businesses, along with curing poverty and, providing better education. Okay, others looked towards the ideas of socialism, where wealth is equally distributed among everybody. Okay, so some different ideas and different suggestions coming about there from literature at the time. A new style of writing in naturalism. Those writers who were critical of the industrial period produced a new writing style known as naturalism. Okay, issues and problems that faced American society due to industrialization and urbanization were discussed. Poverty, violence, disease, safety, and even isolation were discussed. Readers were encouraged to become reformers. Now, while the literature had some positives, there were also some negatives, such as dislike of other social classes, such as maybe causing an argument between the wealthy and the poor. But naturalism literature did help push the idea of government intervention in society. So this is going to cause more people to say, hey, hello, government, you should be helping out society, not just kind of sitting back and, painting your toenails, okay? They want government to become more involved in the lives of people and to help people out. So providing help for the poor. Some reformers looked for new ways to help the urban poor. Using the biblical ideas of charity and justice, some reformers formed the social gospel movement. Okay? Churches began building gyms, providing social programs and childcare, and helping the poor. Sorry about the huge check mark there again. Different groups and organizations combined faith and interest in reform. You might have heard of some of these before. We have the Salvation Army, gave practical aid and religious guidance, and the Young Men's Christian Association, or YMCA, organized Bible studies, citizenship training, and group activities, along with providing low-cost boarding houses for young men. Support from settlement houses. An offshoot of the social gospel movement was the settlement house movement. Okay? Reformers established settlement houses in the late 1800s in poor neighborhoods which had a lot of immigrants. These reformers were typically college-educated women who lived in the settlement houses as well. And settlement houses were typically community centers that offered medical care, English classes, kindergartens, and recreational programs. 1889, Jane Addams, who you see on the left-hand side, opened Hull House in Chicago, Illinois, which was a very well-known settlement house. You can kind of see what one of those looked like as well. Reforming education. More trained and educated workers were needed as the country became more industrialized and urbanized. Public schools increased greatly after the United States Civil War. We see children begin to attend school more. More children also began to attend school. Immigrant children learned about United States history and culture in a process known as Americanization. Okay, again, kind of taking them away from their own cultures, which was not fair, but teaching them about American culture. Discipline and workplace skills were also taught to children, and high schools taught vocational education, or kind of like what you might know today as trade schools, right? To learn about certain trades. Okay, and there should be a period there, sorry about that. Now, while reforms were being made in education, some children were left out, such as those in rural areas or the countryside or African Americans. To combat this, some, such as Booker T. Washington, who you see in the top picture here, we'll be talking more about him later on in our class, started their own schools for African Americans, such as the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama, in 1881, a school for African Americans to learn workplace skills and trade skills so they could hopefully become equal with whites. That was his idea, that if African Americans could learn these skills and become respected in these trades or skills, that they would gain more equal rights. Okay, so that was part of his view. Now, not everyone's going to agree with that, and we'll talk more about the different views of African American reformers later on, but this was a school that's still around today, that played an important role in African American culture and history as well. All right, so closure. How did reformers start to help people during the late 1800s in the United States? Think about movements in literature, think about the social gospel movement, the settlement houses, and think about some of the other changes in education as well, and that'll help you answer your questions. Hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Hope you have a good rest of your day or night, and please let me know of any questions or concerns, and I hope to talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.